Hello everyone, my name is Anagha and I will be teaching today's first lesson on website development. Today's lesson is called Intro to Web Dev. So, what will we go over today? We will first go over the course syllabus. I will explain the structure of this course and what you will expect to learn throughout the lessons. Then I will show you some examples of websites from which we will get inspiration for elements for some of our websites. Third, I will show you how to set up the coding environment. And then I will show you the actual lesson and start teaching HTML basics. We will discuss some basic tags and the HTML boilerplate. And finally, we will code our first website. So, let's start with the course syllabus. Today's first lesson is an introduction to website development. Next time, we will go over some of the HTML tags and I will introduce CSS. Then, we will finally go over HTML tags and master this aspect of website development. Then, we will finish learning about CSS and talk about CSS layouts and tools. We will spend more time on CSS as it is a bit more challenging to grasp than HTML and JavaScript. Then, we will be starting to learn some of the basics of JavaScript. As JavaScript is a very complex language, we will only cover some of the basics of it. And finally, we will start our final project. Now, let's look at some website examples. While we look at these examples, try to look for some similar aspects in between these websites. So, while we look at these websites, what do you notice? Well, I noticed that there are many buttons. Some of these buttons change color when you hover over them, and also both websites have a bar at the top with menus to navigate the website. Pretty cool, huh? When we start building websites, we will keep these types of elements in mind. Even though buttons don't have to change color when we hover over them, it's just a nicer user experience, you know? Also, here's the official HTML website. If you're ever confused about anything, make sure to search up your problem online to see if you can debug your problem. So now, let's set up our coding environment. First, please get a Replit account. Replit is a great interface to code because it is accessible from any browser if you make an account. I will be using Replit for my lessons. However, if you really wish to use another coding interface, you will need to make sure that we are on the same page. Please create a Replit account if you do not have one already. Pause the video if you need some time to catch up. Otherwise, let's start coding. So here, after you sign in and make an account, you should click the +Create button to create a new project. Then you would press the HTML, JS, CSS template button. Rename the project to be Website Development Lesson 1. Then press Create and you've just made a new project. Now, let's go back to the presentation. Basically, a boilerplate is a section of code that needs to be included in many places with little to no alteration at all. For example, when you create an HTML project, you see all of this code in the Replit file. All of this is boilerplate code. Basically, almost all HTML projects will use this or a very similar code at the beginning. Many coders just copy and paste this code whenever they use a coding interface that doesn't automatically provide the boilerplate code. Luckily for us, Replit automatically provides it, so we don't have to do any extra work. And finally, website development includes 3 main languages: HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. These 3 languages come hand in hand, so if you use one, you will most likely use another. Today, we will only be working on HTML, so if you see this file on the left that says index.html, this is the only one we will be working with today. So again, this is just another example of boilerplate code from a Replit for HTML. You guys should see a similar screen to this on yours. Okay, now let's get into the HTML basics. HTML stands for a hypertext markup language. It is one of the most commonly used languages for coding websites. HTML uses elements to create parts of the website. Elements are made up of tags, which are the greater than and less than symbols, and text inside of them. You will almost always be using a closing tag too. For closing tags, you will just use the / symbol before the tag. I will show you how to do this soon. So for example, if you want to create a header for your website, you will use the tags h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, or h6. Basically, these 6 H's may seem a bit confusing, but they just indicate how big you want your header to be. If you want the largest header, use H1, and if you want the smallest header, use H6. So, let's try it out. You can erase this comment here as it might be in the way of your code. Now, if you see where it says Hello World, this is where you guys will be typing your code. Now, if you use the tags in H1, you will see how big this header will look. So here I will type H1 and then the tags, and then this is a header. Now let's run the code. Yay, this is a header. It's the biggest header that you can have, but later on in the course when we teach CSS, I will be able to show you how to change the size of the headers to whatever you want. Now, if you try it with H6, it should look smaller. See, now it's smaller. Eventually, we will learn how to adjust these sizes to be exactly the size we want. Now, let's try paragraphs and links. With paragraphs, you will just use the tags and the letter P. Let's write a short paragraph for our example. Cup of Java is a great organization that connects young girls with computer science. Today is my first lesson in website development, and I am writing a paragraph right now. I love computer science. Now let's run our code. Yay, our paragraphs work. Now let's try links. For links, this one is a bit different than paragraphs and headers. You will be using tags around href equals link.com, and then a closing tag with just /a. Here, the link.com would be the URL to any website that you want to link, and the hyperlink text is what you want the text to say. I will insert a link to the Cup of Java website, with the hypertext link being, check out this cool website. The href just means that you're referencing that link, so let's code this. Okay, so it looks like our code is working. So if you press this button and then you press this arrow, you can open the website into a new browser so that it'll be easier to access the website when you click on the link. Okay, let's click on the link. Yay, it works. This is really cool, right? Okay, now let's go on to our final tag of the day, which is images. For images, you will need to use tags around img src equals filename.jpg, alt equals alternative text. This may seem very confusing, and it was for me too at first. But basically, the img stands for image, and then the src stands for source, so it's just the image source. And then filename.jpg is just the link address to the image that we will be using. And then here, the alternative text is just the text that shows up if your computer doesn't load very fast. Many coders do use this, but we will not be focusing on that for today. It's pretty easy to incorporate images from the web onto our websites. However, it is trickier to incorporate personal downloaded pictures. So for now, we will just be using images from online. Here is an image I found of a cute puppy. If I right-click on the image, I see that there are many options available. I'll click copy image address, and then now I have the link in my image onto my clipboard. I'll paste the link here and see what happens. Okay, now if I run my code, we'll see that this image is pretty big. At least it worked, right? Later on, we will learn how to format our images, so don't worry about the size of your image yet. If your image is really big or really small, we will be figuring out how to format it later. Now, let's go back to the presentation. Here is a link that you guys can use to see a more comprehensive list of tags in HTML. Finally, here's an idea for a project that you guys can do with the skills I've taught you today. You guys can create a web page about your favorite animal. Screenshot this page if you would like to work on this assignment. And we're done. Thank you all for listening to me talk about website development. Here are my contact details in case you have any questions or concerns about today's lesson. Also, make sure to send me the link to your website. You can link your website by clicking on your Replit and then the arrow at the top right corner and then copy the URL from the URL bar. Just like this. Anyways, bye guys, I'll see you next time.